Are we ready, Jess? Recording is on. We are ready. While councillors is taking their seats, I would like us to please make sure that the executive mayor is on virtual. Is he connected? Thank you.
Morning, Speaker. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Mayor. So, is the attendance register circulating? Yes. I believe it is circulating. Thank you very much. On that, can we then observe our 1 minute of silence to open our proceedings? Starting now. Amen. Amen. Thank you, councillors. We're moving on to point 3, the application of leave of absence. I received none. Point 4, the declaration of interest. Any councillors like to declare? None. Councillors, I would just like to bring it under your attention that we will be changing the order of business due to the minister that's here this morning. We will be moving back point 5, the confirmation of minutes. We will go straight to the presentations, and on that I would like council please to excuse me for a few minutes because of the minister's visits that's here, and while the presentation is ongoing, the municipal manager will oversee the presentation with the role of councillors, and then I will return within the next 15 minutes. Thank you, councillors. Jess, do we have the presentations ready?
I'm ready to proceed. This is Anton Kutsia speaking.
Môre Anton, jy kan maar aangaan.
Okay, thank you very much. Guys, I was given a slot of 1 hour, but I won't waste time. I think we may be able to do it slightly shorter than that, all depending on questions. We can go to the second page of the presentation, please. All right. Before we start, I was asked to talk to the councillors about the role of a councillor. Now, the role of a councillor is actually not that simple, and it's sometimes difficult to define. But there are some general principles that I would like to share with you, and then after we've done that, I will show to you through a system of delegations how we create the executive, and then after that, in the last slide, I will show you how we hold the executive accountable. So the first principle is that anybody in South Africa who is eligible to vote is qualified to be a councillor. That flows from section 158 of the Constitution. There are some qualifications in the Constitution that you may wish to take note of. In other words, even though a person may be eligible to vote, if he falls in one of the categories listed in section 158, then he's not eligible to be a councillor. So you can possibly just have a look at that by yourselves. The next principle is that councillors are not employees. We've seen in the past that there's a little bit of confusion on this point. It is not a 5-year contract appointment. It's a councillor is a position sui generis. In Afrikaans we say dis eie soortig. So what that basically means is that you are remunerated by the municipality, but you're not an employee of the municipality. And the reason why that's important is because labor legislation do not apply to you. Therefore, you will find that you will not pay UIF. You will not be entitled to sick leave in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. You are not subject to disciplinary procedures in terms of the Labour Relations Act. And we have in the past heard councillors ask for maternity leave and family responsibility leave and all these concepts that flow from the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. But councillors are not employees. Okay. The other principle that is very important to understand is that the employer of the municipality is council. Council as a collective. Okay. There's no such thing as the mayor appointing staff. How that plays out is that council will appoint an organigram. This is a schedule that the municipal manager normally draws up, pertaining to all the positions that needs to be filled in the municipality and that needs to be budgeted for. So once that organigram is drawn, it is taken to council. And council will then consider and approve the organigram. And once the organigram is approved, then those positions should be budgeted for. And once there is a budget for a position, the municipal manager can in fact then appoint these people. The only employees that council will appoint directly is your municipal manager and your directors, or the managers who report to the municipal manager. And that's a very important thing that you need to understand, because especially in the smaller municipalities in the Karoo, these people want to appoint, or the councillors individually wants to appoint people in the municipality. They want to give work to people, and guys, you simply can't do that. That's the responsibility of the municipal manager. The next principle is the fact that councillors have a fiduciary responsibility towards the community they represent. Now, what it means to stand in a fiduciary relationship, it means that you are in control of an asset of someone else that you have to protect and care for. In other words, you can use this asset, but it never becomes yours. It always remains the other person's asset. And that's the definition of a fiduciary responsibility. Now, you will see that this is recognized in item 2 of Schedule 7 to the Structures Act 21, or the Code of Conduct for Councillors. And the reason why this is so important is because if you take a look at Section 2 of the Systems Act, you'll see that it says a municipal council consists out of the legislator, the executive, and members of the community. Those are your 3 pillars. So what happens in a municipality in a nutshell is that we go out and we deliver services to the people, but we collect revenue for delivering those services. We also collect revenue through rates and taxes. But this money is not our money. This money remains the money of the community, and it should be given back to the community. And the way that that happens is that we collect the money, and then through an IDP process, we determine how the money is going to be given back to the community, or it's going to be spent in the community. And that's what your budget and your IDP is all about. And because of your fiduciary responsibility, you have a responsibility to look after the money of the community.
Mr. Coetzee, are you back online?
Mr. Coetzee, can you hear us?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, you may proceed.
Okay, but can somebody just tell me where I was when the feed was cut?
You were on Councillor's fiduciary duty and responsibilities.
Okay, and did I finish that or didn't I?
You were still on it, just because I had the privilege of this presentation. I think you were almost done.
Okay, all right. So let's proceed then. But please, if something happens and I'm cut off again, just warn me immediately. So councillors, I trust that you understand how what it means to be in a fiduciary position towards members of the community. And then the next point there is councillors act as a collective. Now, councillors do their work in the form of committees. Individual councillors really don't have much of a responsibility, except where an individual councillor holds delegated authority to take final decisions or to do certain things as given to it by council. So there's also some committees that can hold delegated authorities, such as your Section 80 committees, some Section 79 committees, but mainly the individual councillors who will hold delegated authority is the executive mayor. The rest of the councillors actually work together as a collective and not as an individual. All right, then the last principle that I want to highlight to you is that council takes all the decisions, and this flows from Section 160, subsection 1 of the Constitution and Section 59, subsection 1 of the Systems Act. And what that basically means is it says that in the very first meeting of a municipal council, all this responsibility vests in council itself. Obviously, if you are a plenary type municipality, then this responsibility remains with council. But all other types of municipality, it's envisaged by legislation that you will delegate authority. And through these delegations, council then creates an executive. So if we go to the next slide, I give you a very, very simple schedule there of what the executive looks like. And this executive is created through your system of delegations in terms of Section 59, subsection 1 of the Systems Act, read with Section 53 of the Systems Act, which is titled Terms of Reference. Because once council has adopted these delegations, then it should be in writing and it should be documented in a document which is titled the Terms of Reference. Guys, just before I move on with regard to delegation, just remember the legal rule, delegatus delegare non potest, which means that when you receive delegated authority, you cannot on-delegate that authority unless the delegating authority has specifically authorized you to do so. So obviously, when powers are delegated to the municipal manager, for instance, the council will also allow the municipal manager to on-delegate some of his responsibilities. And because the municipal manager is the accounting officer, all delegations to the administrative executive will flow through the municipal manager. Even though you will find that, for instance, in the MFMA, there are specific responsibilities of a CFO, that doesn't mean that council will delegate directly to the CFO. Those delegations will also run through the municipal manager, because the CFO will report back to council through the office of the municipal manager, but I'll show you just now how that works. So the important thing to understand now is that council remains the employer, not the municipal manager. In some municipalities, I've been told the municipal manager is the employer. Guys, that's wrong. Council remains the employer. Council creates an executive. The executive is split into two. It's split into a political executive and it's split into an administrative executive. The political executive is headed up by the executive mayor, and the executive mayor then creates a MACO who is supported by Section 80 committees. All of that is to support the executive mayor. On the administrative executive side, the municipal manager is supported by directors, and the directors are supported by directorates. This is the system of delegations, and that is how the responsibility flows from council through to the rest of the municipality in order for the municipality to be able to execute the decisions of council or to give effect to their delegations. All right, let's go to the next slide quickly, and then I'll show you how everything comes back to council. So on the next slide, and it seems we're doing quite well with time. On the next slide, you will see that the responsibilities of council was now given through to the administration, but because council is the employer, council always remains ultimately responsible. So for council to be able to exercise this responsibility, it needs to receive the information back as to how the different directorates, the municipal manager, the executive mayor, and everybody has dealt with the instructions and the responsibilities that were actually given down to them. Now, this is where councillors do their best work. So if we start at the bottom from the directorates, this now being the administrative executive, you will find that the directorates report back to the municipal manager through the internal auditor. That's in terms of section 165 of the MFMA. And the internal auditor then reports to the municipal manager, and the internal auditor also reports to council's audit committee. That's created in terms of section 166 of the MFMA. And that is how council exercises its oversight over the executive. Because remember, if the municipal manager carries on with his work and there are certain things that he wants to hide from council, he just simply doesn't send it up to council. But because the report of the internal auditor or internal audit unit is also reported to council's audit committee or the external audit unit, that sort of circumvents that possibility. So then from the mayor, obviously the municipal manager reports to the mayor and the mayor to council. This is how the system flows, because remember, the mayor has a direct oversight role over the municipal manager. And the reason for that is to get the information to flow fluently back to council. So now the mayor has received all these reports, and the mayor then, through the Section 80 committees, considers these items. So how does the political executive work? The very bottom of the political executive is your ward committee system. The ward committee system is where we get the members of the community to participate in municipal affairs, and that flows from Section 152, subsection 1E of the Constitution, which makes it an object of local government to involve members of the community. So that feeds into the Section 80 committees, And that is where the councillors will start with their oversight. They will interrogate the items before the Section 80 committees, and it's very important that they take this seriously, because they will then formulate a recommendation to the executive mayor, and everything, the things that the mayor will deal with finally, and the things that will be referred to council, all runs through this system. So the debate then takes place in the Section 80 committees. A recommendation is formulated. It is sent to the mayor. Where the mayor holds delegated authority, the mayor will then take a final decision, and where the mayor does not have delegated authority, such as the items mentioned in 160 subsection 2 of the Constitution, and also section 59 subsection 1 of the Systems Act. These things are reserved for council. There are also a couple of other things reserved for council. That then goes up to council for a final decision. Okay. So I said to you in the beginning that councillors work together in committees. They do their work as a collective. So how does this play out in practice? How that plays out is that the various committees of which councillors are members receive reports from the executive. Okay, you will receive, as just by means of an example, you will receive a service delivery and budget implementation plan. Councillors in a committee will then interrogate the SDBIP, and they will take a look at how the budget is being spent. Is it up to date? Is the spending in line with the way it should happen? To whom was tenders awarded? Are the tenders being awarded? Is the budget being executed? And in considering that, councillors, individual councillors as part of a collective, then exercises oversight. The other forms of oversight is your section 71, 72. You can take a look at those reports. There are various reports that come through the Section 80, MACO, Mayor, and to council through that system. And the interrogation of these reports is how individual councillors exercise their oversight. Now, some of the other reports or some of the other committees that assist council, you'll see the blocks there on the left-hand side. Your audit report is a big one. And the report of the external auditor guy should really not just be just be submitted to council and taken note of. This report should be seriously interrogated, because that is how councillors work. Then you have your oversight committee that reports directly to council. In the past, it was an oversight committee in terms of section 129 of the MFMA, tasked to deal with the annual report. Currently, it is section 79's capital letter A of the Structures Act of 21 that creates a Municipal Public Accounts Committee. That should, of course, be read with section 79 of the Structures Act, because even though there are some particulars listed in 79 capital letter A, it still remains a section 79 committee. Then, of course, you have your power to review. Section 59, subsection 3 of the Systems Act says that any decision taken in terms of delegated authority must be brought back to council if 25% or more of the councillors request the speaker to do so. Okay? And then, of course, your section 62 appeals, which provides also an oversight function to members of the public pertaining to decisions taken in terms of delegated authority. And the outcomes of these are reported to council, because council need to see what happened there and how that oversight was exercised. So, guys, in a nutshell, a councillor finds himself sometimes in a very difficult position, because although you have a fiduciary responsibility towards members of the community, most of you also belongs to political parties, and you must also protect those interests. So That's why you will find that a municipal councillor stands under the discipline of the municipality in terms of now the Structures Act, Schedule 7, previously Schedule 1 to the Systems Act, but councillors also stand under a disciplinary code of the political parties, and there are also specific rules that flow from that. The main message that I want to give to councillors this morning is that you work as a collective. Individual councillors have very, very little power. And you need to understand that, because once you start acting as an individual councillor without holding a delegation to do so, you may find that you will run foul of, I think it's now item 13 of Schedule 7 to the Structures Act. Previously it was item 11 of Schedule 1 to the Systems Act, and that is interference. You will find that members of the administration will submit a charge to the Speaker to say that a specific councillor have interfered in the administration. So, like I said, the main message, you work together as a collective, and if you have political stability in your municipality, then that collective will function effectively. If you start fighting amongst one another, it attacks the power of that collective, and then you will find that service delivery goes out the door. Guys, that is all that I have for you this morning. If there are any questions, I'll gladly deal with it.
Dankie Anton, ons waardeer. Dankie toe Khalil en die span. Die session is nou oop vir die vrae, as er enige vraag is aan die raadslede, spesifiek die raadslede. Dit was die presentation on die role of councillors. Councillors? Anton, namens die raad en die speaker, dankie, and thanks again to the full team and Khalil for always being available. You are excused. If we do need any other workshops or sessions with you, we'll let you know. We'll keep in touch. Thank you very much for being available for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Right.
Thank you.
Councillors, as you know, I cannot be an acting speaker. I've just SMSed the speaker to find out if they are done, can come back. I'm led to understand that we also have a challenge with our live streaming. It just cut off, meaning the public is unable to listen to this meeting. The meeting is not adjourned. The meeting is in session. The speaker of the meeting will join. Is he available now? I'm just going to go talk. Okay. So, as the speaker indicated that I will deal with the presentations, I'll just double check if Melanie Joffy from the Auditor General can start a little bit early so that we know the presentations have been dealt with. Councillor Mhlana, you can talk, but we cannot take hands. As I said, I'm not the Speaker of the Council.
Thanks, ma'am. Can't we appoint the official chief whip to be the temporary speaker so that we can conclude the session?
That can be considered, but it would have been better if the matter was raised in the presence of the speaker. But that can be considered for that session, because the speaker did indicate and nobody objected to say that he is giving that I just deal with the issue of the presentation, and then after that he can deal with the matter of council.
Here is a proposal, councillors, while we are waiting.
The speaker has informed me he will be here shortly, so. Can administration so long check the issue of the live screening, please, so that the public does participate in the affairs of council? The session is not adjourned. I cannot give that break. I'm not the acting speaker. I just want us to be procedurally correct.
We are in limbo now.
Yeah.
We are in limbo now, and the speaker is not around.
I think we can.
I thought the speaker was going to sit down somewhere very close, but we are still waiting.
We can rectify it then when the speaker is back. Let's adjourn for 10 minutes and then we'll rectify it when the speaker is back.
Yes.
Back to the seats. We will start now.
Okay, we're starting now.
Thank you very much. We will resume. My apology. As we've said before, I needed to attend to the minister because it's issues in the ward. It's been sorted on that one. Also, I do receive from that there's some problems with the presentation. So in terms of the connectivity, they couldn't really connect, and then due to that the presentation couldn't. Was it finished?
Yeah, the public cannot. It's cutting.
Okay. Thanks, So on that, councillors, administration, I would just like us then to please observe a 1 minute of silence out of respect. We have received, although it's not been confirmed, but it is going around as a municipality. We haven't received official, but it's confirmed that we have lost one of our administration staff. Mr. Sompani has passed away, and it's out of respect. Can we observe a 1 minute of silence for one of our administration directors in human settlement? Thank you. Starting now. Thank you. We are resuming on point 5, Point 5 is the confirmation of minutes or of previous meetings. Starting on page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, 11, 12. Councillor Botha?
Thank you, Speaker. I would just like to confirm on resolution C1370322. Point 2, where it says Council takes note of the content of the report relating to Annexure B. There is no Annexure B. There was no Annexure B. MPAC was actually waiting for that report. So there is no such report when it's referred to that. So we cannot take note of content of that report because there is no report. So we should probably rescind that resolution in order to correctly reflect the facts.
So there is not a true reflection in what's
Not a
being
true
there.
reflection. I mean, that is the resolution that was adopted, but I don't see how it can be adopted when there is no content on a report relating to Annexure B, because MPAC is still waiting for that report.
We will highlight that that's not a true, and then get on.
Thank you.
Councillor, MM?
Chair, these are minutes of council meeting. So I would then suggest, if that's the case, then it means the item was as it is in council meeting. The minutes reflect what transpired in the meeting. So I will then suggest that we, Jessica, unless there's something that you want to clarify quickly.
I'll just show Annexure B is was in fact on the June. I can just screen it quickly. Annexure A to the item. Annexure B.
Yeah, Councillor Botha, unless it speaks to the matter that was discussed in the MPAC meeting about the information that was then outstanding regarding the bank that you've requested from the administration, and the person responsible was not present in that meeting. But this reflects what was discussed was in the council meeting.
Councillor Botha?
Okay, it's fine. If you want to take note of something that has been taken note of before, that's absolutely fine with me. I can then accept it as a true reflection, and MPAC will further report on it when we get our report. Thank you.
Just guidance.
Councillor Mangaba?
If I may just assist the House, if we can still recall on the meeting on the 31st of March, Councillor Kolapi did make note of the fact that the report, that annexure that was presented to us, because this was presented at council level, that it was not present at their MPAC meeting. However, these are actually council minutes, and they are as they should.
Chair, then, I think it must be then noted that these minutes are council minutes. But we cannot note it in this meeting because this is a council meeting for MPAC. But the MPAC in their next meeting must note it that they were not presented with that information. The item can be recalled at any other time. So what we're doing now is looking at the reflection of what transpired in the council meeting. But we can recall this item again, because if this is the recommendations of MPAC, but MPAC did not have sight of this Annexure B when they had their meeting, then it actually went wrong in the council meeting. But it can only in this meeting reflect what transpired in the meeting. So if that annexure B was there in the council meeting, it was there, but it needs to be corrected. So MPEC can have an opportunity to actually recall that decision in the next council meeting.
Thank you, Emma. So on that it is then, Councillor Botha is then answered.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Tlabai.
Thanks, Speaker. Speaker, I'm picking up something there. If Councillor Koloapi recorded that Annexure B was not available in their portfolio committee in a council meeting, but it's not recorded there, written, that a portfolio committee member said Annexure B was not available, while then she was shocked to see that this is what is given to council, whereas they were not given in the portfolio committee. Then in future, Speaker, whatever that is raised in council, objecting to whatever it is in the item, it must be recorded. Because now we will be moving up and down, and then that was wrong. And now Councillor Botha is not wrong by raising that issue. Now Councillor Mangaba is reminding us. Now I'm picking up that then the scribers didn't, or moreover you, Speaker, because you must be able to say this must be noted or must be recorded, so that if then we do have minutes must reflect what was being said. So that means the minutes here are not reflecting what was being said, what was being objected in the meeting. You see, now we cannot rubber stamp that, whereas it was objected in the meeting. Thank you very much.
Councillor Botha, then we will continue.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. So I just want to confirm, so for clarity, yes, there is an Annexure B and we do have Annexure B, but MPAC has requested a report. So the report relating to Annexure B is still outstanding and has never been received by us and I don't believe it's in Annexure B. And that is what I'm referring to, is that we cannot note that report that relates to Annexure B because there is no report that relates to Annexure B. That is what us as MPAC are awaiting and is outstanding.
Okay.
Thank you.
Amen.
Now, Chair, I thought I was confused now after Councillor Tsapai spoke. I'm following what Councillor Botha is saying there. The MPAC meeting, in that MPAC meeting, then they said Council condones the expenditure in relation to Annexure A, and then administratively, resolution number 2 was not supposed to be there as recommendations of MPAC to Council because there was outstanding information in relation to Annexure B. They took that resolution, but when it came to Council, it came as the originally those 2 recommendations, and administration provided this Annexure B, which should not have been provided in Council because MPAC in terms of their minutes, because you see the difficulty, Councillor Tsapai, we're not dealing with minutes of MPAC now. That will be recorded in the minutes of MPAC. That says, Councillor Kolapi says that we deal with recommendation number 1, not number 2, because there's outstanding information. So what we do now, because this was presented in Council, and unfortunately something that I will just have to follow up administratively, which was an administrative error in providing that annexure, because it was not supposed to be provided, because MPAC already said that we're waiting for this information in order for us to resolve on the recommendation number 2. So we accept that, as Councillor Maklava said, that this is what transpired in Council. That annexure was provided, but as I said, MPAC can recall at any time that resolution that they've actually had. It means then at that point it will nullify that resolution that has been taken in Council. But for now we have to note it because it transpired in Council.
Thank you. Councillor Kamka.
Thank you, Speaker. I think I'm also following now. What I would just like to say, if I look at resolution number 1, it actually recommends from MPEC that we condone, which is a serious matter, which council now then took the decision to accept your recommendation. If I look at recommendation number 2, taking note means we didn't make a formal decision on that report. We just took note of that report. So quite frankly, I think nothing stops MPEC from dealing with that report in the next meeting. Council didn't make any decision on Annexure B. Council simply noted Annexure B. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kamkam. On that, we will then continue. We do take of this reflection of the minutes. We will continue on page 11 of the minutes, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then it's the attendance register, page 26, 27, 28, and then we continue on page 29, 30, 31. Sorry.
Sorry, for the first set of minutes, we need to propose an amendment.
Okay, sorry on that. On that first set, can we have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Ndai? Councillor Kamkam?
Seconded, Speaker.
Proposed by Councillor Ndai. Then we have another set of minutes for the meeting on 7th of April. It's on page 29. Then we have page 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and then minutes. Is that a true reflection? Can we have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Nel?
I propose, Speaker.
There's a proposal by Councillor Nel. Councillor Mhlana?
I second, Speaker.
Proposed by Councillor Nel and seconded by Councillor Mhlana. Thank you. We continue on the minutes. Then we have point 6, the statement and communication by the Executive Mayor and the Speaker. Executive Mayor, do you have any communications?
Morning, Speaker. Thank you very much. Morning, Speaker, councillors, management and staff, and members of the public, if they have managed to tune in. Firstly, just on behalf of Bitou Municipality, I wish to pass on our sympathies and condolences to the family of the Director of Community Services, Mr. Simpani, who passed away earlier this week. Mr. Simpani has been with Bitou Municipality since 2018. Our thoughts are with the family during this trying time. And then also regarding Census 2022 count by Statistics South Africa, there have been notices regarding the low census count in the Western Cape. Approximately 55.5% of people have been counted. National government has given an extension until the 30th of April to have the census in the Western Cape completed. So that gives us until Saturday to still complete the census. I want to encourage everyone who's not yet been contacted by a census worker to please complete the census online. It's a simple, quick process. The website address is quite easy. If you go to Google and you type in getcounted.statssa.gov.za, it'll take you straight to the census form, and it's a few minutes to complete, and then at least we can get that information. I'm just going to read some of the comments that the Premier of the Western Cape, Premier Alan Winde, made a few days ago to outline the importance of making sure that we get the census count correct. His comments are as follows. He says, if it stays this way, we will be perceived to have a lower population than we actually have, despite significant population growth. And this will impact budget allocation throughout the provincial equitable share and other allocations and resources raised nationally. To put it simply, if we do not get an accurate census count for our province, we may have fewer resources available to deliver services in the future, which could impact each and every resident. This is a major risk which we must avert. I therefore urgently call on residents to play their part and get counted as soon as possible. If you have already been counted, please also ask your colleagues, friends, and family whether they've been counted and encourage or help them to do so if they haven't yet. This is absolutely critical and something we must all prioritize as we approach the deadline. The truth is that we already are not happy with our budget allocation from national and have often fought for more resources given the population changes we have experienced over the last 10 years. This is our opportunity to finally accurately reflect on that change. So that gives an indication of how important it is. It comes down to rands and cents that we have available for resources in the province. So we need to please get as many people as possible in the net. Go online and register. Don't wait for someone to come see you. Get action and get it done. Go online and get it done. And then also, just a reminder that COVID is still with us, and there has been a slight increase in numbers. I think the last figure I saw was something like a 16% positivity rate. So we must please remember to wear our masks when you're indoors and when in contact with others to protect both yourselves and the people you come into contact with. That's all from me. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Executive Mayor. There's not really much, as the Mayor has alluded around. We also would like to take then this moment to also emphasize again that we do take respect in the matter around Mr. Sompane and all of us when in public, if we have relatives numbers, to send messages of condolences, to show our respect as well around that. So there's not really much from my side. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you. We will then continue to point 8, which is the items for information which has been dealt with by the Executive Mayor. It seems there's no items. Then we continue with point 9, noting of outstanding and partially implemented council resolutions. There is on page 38. Till page 46. Is there anything, MM? Did you? Nothing? Okay, then there's nothing. We will then continue to our portfolio of index. Point 10. The consideration of reports, non-delegated matters. You would find that on starting on page 47. The portfolio of index items is on page 48. It is also on screen. Our first item that we will be dealing with is item C, stroke 1, stroke 45, stroke 04, stroke 22, which is the draft consequence management and SOP for dealing with UIFW expenditure, SEM abuse, financial misconduct, and financial offences misconduct on page 50 to page 138. Item is now serving.
Speaker, thank you very much. This item serves to provide a guideline for council and all administrative staff in terms of how you deal with the issues of consequence management, the treatment of irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, as well as the issue of dealing with the process for financial misconduct. I have observed when I started that the municipality has recorded quite a number of issues. In my first meeting with MPEC, I was very concerned. I raised it with the chairperson of MPEC that there are things that are recorded as fruitless and wasteful expenditure which could have been rectified by the accounting officer in terms of the process. So this is to provide that guidelines in terms of how do you treat irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure, and what are the consequences management that you have to follow, as well as the financial misconduct regulation. The item, Speaker, is submitted today for Council to note, to be referred to a proper workshop that will be arranged soon in May as we deal with the policies, so that Council and the management is taken through the framework. Then it can come back for approval before the beginning of the new financial year. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you,
Sorry. Speaker, we just have to note in the item it speaks about the preferential procurement framework, which was nullified by the Constitutional Court. So maybe as additional recommendation that Council should note that the preferential procurement framework was nullified by the Constitutional Court, but it is a legislation that somehow speaks to the issue of consequence management and financial misconduct.
Thank you, Councillor Kolwa, please, your hand up.
I recommend, I support all the recommendations that Municipal Manager has put.
So you're proposing that we...
I'm proposing that let's take it to consequence.
There's a proposal by Councillor Kolwapi. Councillor Kamkam.
Thank you, Speaker. We've been waiting for this item for a very long time, so I will gladly be the second of this item. Thank you.
The item has been proposed by Councillor Kolwapi and then seconded by Councillor Kamkam. We're going to the next item. Item C, stroke 1, stroke 46, stroke 04, stroke 22. The approval of disciplinary board terms of reference, charter and appointment of the disciplinary board members for financial misconduct. The item you would find on page 139 till page 169. The item is now serving.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. I thought Jessica wanted to tell me something. Speaker, the item is serving in front of Council for the approval of a disciplinary board. There was a disciplinary board appointed by Council years ago. Unfortunately, that disciplinary board was not then considered by Council. In 2015, Council resolved under Resolution C1-104/05-15 to appoint members of the disciplinary board. You will notice that from 27 May 2015 today, it's more than 6 years. So the regulations makes provision for appointment of a disciplinary board for a period of 3 years, which Council can then extend for another 3 years, but it's a maximum of 6 years, So in essence, the disciplinary board that Council think is there has expired. So we don't have a disciplinary board. So hence this item is in front of Council. It also explains the process, who qualifies and who does not qualify to be members of the disciplinary board. So it's very prescriptive that the Chief Audit Executive and Audit Committee member, Senior Manager Legal Services, and one external person which the council must consider, and official from provincial treasury. It's very prescriptive in terms of who should be in the disciplinary board, and this is one of the matters that MPEC, when they were sitting, also were considering, so that they are able to refer some of the matters that they have considered to the disciplinary board and to council. Chairperson, the only correction that I would want us to do is the issue of the manager legal services. Without going into details, there's only the manager that would qualify now. Hence, there must not be a confusion in terms of senior or manager. So, Mr. Luvuyo would qualify at this point in time to be the member of the disciplinary board, without going into details about the matter. I have also considered the issue of cost and interacted with the municipalities in the district so that we don't have cost, but the cost won't be that much because it's one sitting that the people have to sit. But if somebody has to come from another province or somewhere, then it becomes a cost to the municipality for that sitting. Hence, we have utilized the advocate from the district municipality as part of the disciplinary board. The CV is attached, and then the accounting officer in terms of number 5 will then be requested to write to province to give us that name. So this will be the disciplinary board for the next 3 years, where they will go and review their terms of reference, which council has given them guidelines. So in their first meeting, they need to look at that and then come back to council and say, these are the terms of reference that we agree, that we understand it's our roles and responsibilities. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, MM. The Councillor Nel.
Speaker, I propose that we accept the recommendations of the municipal manager, and it's been a long time that we needed this. We require it urgently.
There's a proposal by Councillor Nel. Councillor Koloape, I see your hand.
I second it, especially that you can see it's got a prudence of how we select people and saving even more. Thank you even for that. So I second.
The item is being proposed by Councillor Nel and seconded by Councillor Koloape. And then we will continue with the next item. Item C, stroke 1, stroke 47, stroke 04, stroke 22. The approval of investigation on the emergency housing. You would find the item on page 170 to 172. The item is serving.
Speaker, thanks. As you are aware, there was a visit 2 weeks ago by the chairperson of the Provincial Development of Human Settlement with her team. I am informed that there was a visit last year that they made to the municipality, and the municipality made commitment. I was alerted very late about this visit where we had to prepare a presentation. It then transpired in our communication with the office of the chairperson that there were commitment made by the municipality. In the visit, when they were here, they were unhappy about a number of things which we made commitments on. We then also did site visit, which we're not going to go into details about this. So initially, the chairperson in the meeting, she wanted to record that there must be a forensic investigation being done. I have requested that we be given space as a municipality to deal with the matter. The item would come to council. In my view, I think we can look at doing an independent investigation, preliminary investigation, to understand what has happened on this matter without council taking a decision for forensic investigation, and it costs us a lot of money. So we can just do a preliminary investigation. Having said that, Speaker, then I would request that we add only one recommendation, which we have actually discussed, because we have to be correct. We have to be correct about this. I'll tell you now. It's on the screen. Okay, sorry, thank you. Thank you, Speaker. At least sometimes the administration can be very efficient. So the team must investigate the emergency housing project by establishing the facts and the sequence of events, determine whether prima facie evidence exists for fraud and corruption and administration and drafting findings and recommendation as part of a detailed report. So what I'm requesting is that let there be a report that comes to council. Instead of us speculating about fraud and corruption, about things, let there be proper report that comes to council. Then council will then only at that time make a determination in terms of what needs to be done from that proper report, so that we don't speculate about this matter. All that we know now is that there was 3.9 million that was given, and then there was expenditure, which is what actually led the chairperson to be worried about. So it could be that there were processes that are explainable in terms of the other additional expenditure. So we just have to get that report. It comes back to council. That's all the item is about. Thanks.
Thank you very much, MM. Councillor Mangaba. Sorry, Mklana.
Thanks, Speaker. I want to support that recommendation because there has been a lot of forensic investigation done in this municipality before, even with councillors, and a huge amount of money gets to be spent, and out of that, no one gets to be arrested. So I want to support that we get first a preliminary report that is done within. Fortunately, maybe we can ask for assistance from the district municipality in terms of independence in those people who will conduct the investigation.
Councillor Mslana has then proposed. Councillor Nel?
Speaker, I second.
Just Amen.
No, sorry, Chair. I just note now we had engagement last week with all provincial government departments. I was alerted that this part falls with the Department of Local Government. So B was sent before Friday last week. So B should reflect provincial government, not specific provincial treasurer. And within provincial government, they know the unit that will then deals with this matter. So
instead of
instead of saying provincial treasurer, the issue of the district is contained, as I was informed by the department when they were here, that they might look at having one resource from the district and one from Cape Town to come and do this 2-3 days report, and then they can then finalize it and give it to council.
Thank you, MM. We have proposed and a seconder. It's just that we need to make sure that B states provincial government instead of appointing a direct treasury. We thank you. On that, we continue. We have an addendum. We have one addendum. It's item C, stroke 1, stroke 50, stroke 04, stroke 22. It is the Bitou Municipality third quarter from January to March 2022 as the BIP report on performance for the current financial year. The item is on screen now serving. Councillor Kamkam, I see your hand.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, unfortunately, we did not have the opportunity to get this report in the finance portfolio. So, but I suppose that we take note of the performance report. I propose that we take note of the performance report, but also just take note of the fact that this report was not submitted to the finance portfolio to peruse. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kamkam. Just to give MM.
Thanks. Speaker, I must first apologize. I don't want to be somebody that makes excuses. In the last meeting, councillors raised the issue of addendums. And then I agreed that it's something that myself I don't like. I must apologize about this addendum. I did establish 2 reasons why we're having addendums all the time. One is that our agenda meetings dates are not aligned in terms of the legislative framework in terms of reporting. This report in front of us is a report from the executive mayor, which is the quarterly report at the end of each quarter. And the executive mayor has got responsibility to submit that report directly, Councillor come to council, not to Section 80. What comes to Section 80 is Section 71 report, which is the monthly report. So this one, the mayor submitted directly to council 30 days after the end of the quarter. So when I look at the closing of council agenda items, all agenda items were closing on the 30th of March. Now, the 30th of March, this report was not even started because they've got 10 days after the end of March to prepare the Section 71 report, and after Section 71, another 5 days to include the non-financial information. But we will correct that when we do the table, the new timetable for council meetings. So the report is to be noted in terms of the performance for the first quarter.
There's Councillor Kamkam proposed that we note. Councillor Botha and then Councillor Kolwape.
Thank you. I would just like to raise internal reference indicator code TL50, where it's referring to a house and spaza shop policy submitted to council by 31st of March 2022, and it's confirmed that it has been done and submitted to council March 2022. I would just like to, I can't recall that we have received this. So I would just like to confirm, when was it submitted to council? The house and spaza shop policy, TL50.
Okay, we will explain. Mr. Gericke?
Thank you, Speaker. It's exactly the same as the MMS explained just now. The policy was done by the 31st, but by that time the agenda is already closed for this month. So it will only serve the next month in front of the council. So it was submitted to the administration, to the, what do I call the agenda people?
The committee services.
The committee services, but it was done on the 31st, the last day for submission, which was not in time for this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Gericke. Councillor Kolwape?
When I looked, there has to be all things there. When I looked at a lot of things, for instance, under financial, I noticed that TL8, it says provide subsidies for free basic services. It's in orange color. And orange color, it's more of saying almost met. It is of concern that we still having not put our systems in place, whilst we know that most of the people that they are crying loud about this indigent policy. There are still cases where people, when they go and rush for indigent policy, they find that there's a lack of ink in the centers. They are offline. People are not there. Those things, for me, it is not fair for the communities to come from Kwanokutula and rush to town, whilst we've got a center at Kwanokutula that can make this indigent policy systems or the response of people to be much better. As we know that there's a lot of money of Bitou that lies into these things of indigent policy. I appeal that us as council, we must make sure that the accounting officer strengthen that system. It has been a long crying type of a system where people are getting fed up, because every time when they go to Simunye, it's this. When they go to Simunye, it's this. The forms are not there. The ink is not there. To cry over ink, it's more offending for such a big, institution. Also, what I've also picked up, it's TL13 and TL14. There's also TL12, the billing of residential property for refuse. And if you see TL13 and TL14 and TL17, TL18, all those things are at red in the SDP. And those things, Speaker, are the concerns of Auditor General. How to manage our waste when it comes to bulk water handling losses. It's the concern that was reflected in Auditor General report. The unaccounted electricity, it was reported as some of the things that we are getting a putting from. So it even shocks that we still get a red on that when we account. It's things that are not yet met. Whereas every day we're talking about these things. Even in our committee, still the concerns that we emphasize. So it is up to our accounting officer to double check those things. We've got also T22 and TL23. It says in TL23, systems of operational delegations that needs to be done by legal services under cooperative. They are also on red. And we know, okay, we've got cases of corruption. That's where corruption starts, when delegation, we don't do it well. If we don't know where we delegate things and follow them up, that's exactly where it ends up the hands being in the cookie jar, because delegation, it's wobbling like this. So if that system, we can't do it well, operational delegation, then it means we are in a frustration. There were a lot of things that I've noted in our SDP that we need to strengthen. For instance, we have talked about it was good. It was a target that was met well beyond UTL 47. It talks about 549 jobs opportunities that was supposed to be met by 30th of June, the EPWPs. But we've noticed that the EPWPs, they ended on March. And it says it was only 459. I would still like to strengthen in this council that we need to ensure accounting officer that the EPWPs must be interviewed. There must be interviews for that, so that people can be placed in right places for the skills, for the upskilling of the people. Because it's the only system where government opens for the poor of the poorest, a platform for them to be exposed in a working environment, and they must go according with the skills that they are having. I would love as a council to document that, even if it's EPWPs, let they be interviewed, so that right people are placed in right needs of the system, and also so that they can grow. Whereas we are good about it that 459 people did get work, but did they get work in right places? Can we stand up here and say we are proud of the EPWP program that was there? I'm sorry, Councillor, with your time, but it's why we need to deliberate these things. Thank you.
You are allowed to speak on the item, but it allows you to speak to 5 minutes. So hence I must remind you about time. I'm not saying, I didn't, while you were talking, stop you. My signal is just to say that you have this amount left, because you are allowed to speak to 5 minutes on something as per.
There are a lot of things that I'm putting in here, Speaker, not what.
Yes, but I understand. But whilst on the floor, you have 5 minutes to talk around the item. Thank you. Amen.
Speaker, there's two issues. 31st of March, I was not here. I'm very concerned because, you see, Director Herika, in the report, it says it was submitted to council. It does not say it was submitted to community services. So I am concerned, because then this document will be a reflection document that is a public document. And then we're saying this policy was submitted to council. And here are the councillors asking us, when was it submitted to us? On that note, I would request that we note this report for compliance as submitted by the mayor within 30 days, but it be referred to a section 80 committee for fairness for further deliberation, to link it with the concerns which I am seeing are correct, raised by Councillor Kolabi, that there must be deliberations on this matter. So we deal with the issue of complying that the item was submitted, but it must be referred for deliberations there, because it's worrisome then if council will then, just note an item which has got, I don't even want to call it elementary mistakes, because I don't know how many of the things that are reported. And it reminds me, Deputy Mayor, in terms of the issues that I've raised in the interviews about the issue of performance management in the municipality. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you, Emma. The item is still open. It was proposed by Councillor Mhlana, if I'm correct. No. Sorry, Councillor Kamkam. Don't know what's wrong. I'm always focusing on these two councillors. By Councillor Kamkam, so it is then. Wait. Councillor Ndai?
I will second that, Speaker. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Ndai. On that, we are done under the municipal manager. We will open up the presentation. Before we go to finance, can we have the presentation of the Auditor General on
good day, Mel, can you hear us?
Morning, everybody. Yes, Mr. Memani, I can hear you.
you can do the presentation. We welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be ably assisted by, I thought it was Faisal, but I'm not sure now. Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the opportunity. For those who don't know me, I'm Melanie Joffe. I'm the Engagement Manager at the AGSA for the Bitou Municipality audit. And we did a presentation a few weeks ago to impact on the audit outcomes, and part of that was quite a high level introduction to material irregularities. So the MM just asked us if maybe we could do a similar presentation, maybe in a little bit more detail, to the council. So that's where we are. Sorry, things are going on, give or take control. I don't know. I don't know who's got control of it now. But anyway.
I don't have control on my side.
You have. Thank you, Faisal.
I don't.
Apologies. You don't? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we have control on our side, Mel, so you can speak on the slide, then we'll proceed to the next one.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is a very high level. I just want to make that clear that it's going to be a very high level. When I was preparing for this meeting, I realized how technical and detailed this material irregularities process actually is. And we've done some intense training on our side, which takes 3 to 4 days. So I surely can't condense all that into just half an hour presentation. So the point of today is to just introduce the concepts, hopefully explain those concepts. This will not be the last conversation that we will be having about material irregularities. It's here to stay. It's going to be part of our audit process. As the AGSA, what we've done at the moment is we've had a phased-in approach. So the amendments came in 2019. They were effective the 1st of April. 2019, but as the AGSA, we decided on a phased-in approach. So not all entities and auditees were subject to that. But last year, we kind of expanded that phased-in approach where we decided we had a responsibility to identify material irregularities, even if the auditees weren't part of the phased-in approach. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment, is that there are some auditees that are full-on MI audits, and there are some where we're doing what we call a trigger approach, where if there's certain items that we find and there's a possible MI, then we would go through that process. That didn't happen at Bitou last year. There was no MIs that we identified, but going forward, that will be part of the normal audit process. So I think what the MM just wanted us to do as the AGSA is to just communicate to the council the meaning of MIs, because if that ever, fingers crossed it doesn't, but if that ever does appear in your audit report, then you'll have some background to it. So the slide that you see at the moment deals with our mission and our vision. If we can just move on to the next slide, because the next slide goes into a little bit more detail about what our mission and our vision, where it comes from. So this slide just talks about, and it's just to give you some background as to where we stand as the AG, and to maybe just remind ourselves, the councillors and the AG people as well, because we sometimes forget where we come from and what our mandate is. So basically, as the AGSA, we are Chapter 9 institution, so along with things like the Public Protector, Human Rights Commission, gender equality, so we are mandated by the Constitution, or established by the Constitution, and we have our own law, which is the Public Audit Act, which regulates what we do and how we do things. So the Constitution entrenches the AG's independence, which is very important, and we have to be seen to be independent and to be independent. So you'll see there it says that we're only subject to the Constitution and the law. It also requires us to be impartial, and we have to exercise our power without fear, favour or prejudice, which also helps us to remain independent. So we at Counter National Assembly, we submit our own annual report, our own financial statements, and we have an audit report, so we go through the same pain that our auditees do. So we have an independent audit firm that actually audits us as the AGSA. So we are accountable to somebody. I don't want people to think that we're not accountable. We are held accountable. We are what they call the Auditee Supreme Audit Institution. So there's nobody above us. There's nobody. We are the only institution that by law has to audit and report on how government is spending the taxpayers' money. And that's been the focus of the AG. You can see we've been in existence since 1911. We've obviously come in leaps and bounds, and it's changed quite a lot since 1911. We're a very different organisation to what we were there, but that has always been our focus, the government spending. So the bottom paragraph there is actually a repeat of our mission, and it says that we, as the AGSA, we have a constitutional mandate. And as the supreme audit institution of South Africa, it exists to strengthen our country's democracy by enabling oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector through our auditing, and therefore building public confidence. So that's just some of the background, and maybe just a reminder of where we are. The next slide, material irregularities. And just to give some background, I spoke about the PAA Act being amended, and there was these material irregularity regulations that also came into being. And this introduced this concept of material irregularities. So what is a material irregularity? So it's any non-compliance with or contravention of legislation, fraud, theft, or a breach of a fiduciary duty, identified during an audit performed under the Public Audit Act, that resulted in or is likely to result in a material financial loss, the misuse or loss of material public resources, or substantial harm to a public sector institution or the general public. And for something to be a material irregularity, all those three aspects must be there to be for it to be considered a material irregularity. I think we can move on. I just want to mention. Oh no, okay, it talks about it here, the expanded mandate. So why did they expand this mandate? Why did they adjust the PAA Act? So what was happening was, and for those of you who may have been lucky enough to meet the late Kimi Makwetu, he was very passionate about the AG and holding people accountable and our recommendations. And I think there was a frustration that there was poor implementation by some, I'm not saying all of them, but by accounting officers of our AG's recommendations to make improvements in the financial and performance management, and not addressing consequences, or there was a lack of consequences. So that's why we started this journey of actually introducing this material irregularity. So you can see there's split into two. So there's accounting officers and accounting authorities, their responsibilities, and the oversight and executive authorities, their responsibilities. So with the accounting officers, they've always had this legal obligation to prevent irregularities and to take action when they occur. And as the AGSA, we've actually identified a lot of these annually in our audit reports or in our management reports. And in a lot of cases, they weren't actually dealt with appropriately. So what happens with the material irregularity is that we identify those, and you've heard me say the definition, that could have a significant impact on the auditor's finances, resources, or service delivery. So we notify the accounting officers so they can take timely, appropriate steps in terms of the legislation, and there are these regulations to follow, and there's one of the slides that gives an example, so you'll kind of see the extent. And we also give the accounting officer authority the opportunity to take the actions required to deal with the material irregularities. So I think what I just want to highlight here is that we don't just say, oh, well, we found a material irregularity. Here you go, accounting officer, and we report it in the audit report, and then we issue a certificate of debt. It's a long process. There's lots of opportunities for the accounting officer to respond, to follow up some things, and to say where they are in the process of dealing with accounting. So when it comes to the oversight and executive authorities, their roles basically remain the same. All that's happening here with the material irregularities is that we are highlighting the most material matters, and hopefully then when the oversight and monitoring roles come into play, then those are the things that can be concentrated on because they will make the biggest impact. So you'll see at the bottom it says success is swift action by the accounting officer to resolve material irregularities and prevent reoccurrence. So you'll see the bottom bullet there as well under the accounting officers and authorities. It says give space to the accounting officer to take action before using our additional powers. And what those additional powers generally in kind of a high level are is we can refer if actions are not being taken, we can refer the material irregularity to any relevant public body for further investigation. So like the public protector, for example, or a similar body. We can issue or take binding remedial action if they fail to implement any recommendations that we have. And then as the last expanded power is this issue a certificate of debt. If there's only if there's a financial loss, we can actually the accounting officer can be held responsible. But again, I just want to reiterate, before we get to that level, there are so many processes to follow. That's almost like a last resort, the certificate of debt. So this next slide also just kind of shows where in the process, or reiterates that in actual fact we can identify a material irregularity at any stage of the audit. And here we're just showing, and unfortunately, I'm not sure how many of you have ever been involved in an audit, but you know, there's certain, we do planning, we do execution, we finalize and conclude, and we issue the audit report. And then there's certain oversight engagements that we have, you know, where we report to impact or things. So what we're saying here is that a material irregularity can be identified during any phase of the audit. It's not just, you know, oh, well, we can only look during planning, or we can only look during execution, or whatever. It's any phase of the audit. And when the audit report is signed, if we've got confirmed material irregularities, then we will actually report in the audit report on the status, so whether it's a new one or what progress has been made with old ones. And those that are still in process, what is their status? I just want to reiterate as well here, and maybe if we could just go back to that, it doesn't mean to say that because we've got this MI audit that there's necessarily an increase in our audit scope. Our processes are such that we already geared, or we have sufficient processes in place to identify, and the normal ones are like non-compliance, fraud and theft. But the additional audit effort comes in if we've identified a material irregularity, because then there's additional audit evidence that we need, and there's additional effort to determine the impact of the irregularity. And you'll see, hopefully, some of the slides will cover that. If we can move on. So we've already alluded to some of the illegal obligations of the accounting authority. I said earlier that they always had this responsibility to look into or account for any irregularities. So like perform preliminary investigations to determine facts and collect information, see who's responsible or can held responsible if there's any financial loss, if it can be recovered, to put things in place to stop or prevent any further losses. We've already mentioned in investigations. If any external party or internal party is responsible, can we recover any monies from them and take any steps? So that's a consequence management that comes into it. And okay, we've talked about financial losses. So we just want to reiterate here that the auditor's policies and procedures typically describe how these steps should be taken and the timing thereof. And these are not new concepts. It's not something new that you need to do because now suddenly we have this MI. Okay, we've talked about the bottom says same steps should be taken if the accounting officer is notified of a material irregularity. So it will be the same. It's nothing new that needs to be introduced or brought in because now there may be these material irregularities. If we can move on to the next slide. Now, this is just an example, and my apologies, it is based on a PFMA cycle, but you can actually see the process that is followed. And I mean, here in this example, and it is only example, it depends. Some of these MIs are very complex. And because it's a new process as well, we don't have that history behind to see how long something should take. So depending on the complexity and when, if things get put into place, some of the MIs will be dealt with in a very short time, and some of them may actually take longer. So long as things are happening and we're following up. So you can see here, the first step was they identified this MI, they notified the accounting officer. Oh, I've just lost my slide. Okay, thank you. And then there's responses. And then if actions weren't appropriate, so that as the AG we do follow-ups, and then there's recommendations. We can report those in the audit report. Again, there's more follow-ups. You can request more written submissions. You conclude on whether these further submissions, whether we now have to do the certificate of debt. We have certain, which are not necessarily reflected here, but we have a lot of committees in between and a lot of technical people involved in this process. So even in the beginning, before we've identified an MI as the AGSA, we've already gone to technical people, we've already gone to our, what we call our material irregularity committees to determine, do they agree that it's an MI or not. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of considerations. It's not just oh, well, you know, we found this, let's just issue an MI anyway. There's a lot of considerations. And as we go through the process, different people get involved, even up to the AG herself, if something, you know, there's certain committees that she would sit on. So this was just an example to show the length of time that it can take, and it's not just something that is taken lightly. I think that's just what we wanted to show in this slide. If we can move on to the next slide. The next slide, it was just a case of the difference between irregular expenditure and material irregularities. Some people get a bit confused with that. The bottom line is, I think with irregular expenditure, that starts coming into being once there is expenditure. So you can't have, if you've got a contract that didn't comply with regulations and there should be irregular, you can only start recognizing that irregular expenditure once you start expending on it. But with material irregularity, it's different. We're looking at the whole contract and whether there is any financial loss. So you may have, you know, you've got a contract, say for 8 million. I don't know, I can't remember what the example is they used here, but say you didn't get the best price for something. That would probably result in a financial loss, because you've gone out on tender, say, and you haven't got the best price for something. So you could have got it cheaper, excuse me. So the difference between what you could have got it or what the market related and what you actually paid, that would be the financial loss, and that would actually be the material irregularity. But the examples here that where there's an irregular expenditure, but it wouldn't result in a financial loss because you got your value for money, is that the supply, or you got the goods, the supplier did not submit a tax certificate, or there's no specifications for local content. So those are the things that probably wouldn't result in any financial loss. So remember, with the material irregularity, it's the financial loss that we need to identify. And this is also highlighted again in the next slide. So when you look at the value, as I said before, the value of irregular is that the value is expenditure to date, and the material irregularity is, it may even not have a value. But if we feel that, and if they feel that there is a potential for a financial loss, and we can estimate what we feel the financial loss could be, with reasonable estimation, then that could still be an MI. Then the example that it gave was basically what I said previously, where you've got a lack of competitive bidding, the contract for 20 million. If you had the same service for 18 million, then your financial loss is 2 million. So that would be the material irregularity. Whereas on the regular expenditure side, it would be the payments that you make on that contract would be irregular expenditure. Okay, if we can move on to the next. So we've spoken about this, so this is just kind of in summary form. So where there has been a material irregularity, what is the next step and what are the responsibilities? So the first one says if the accounting officer is dealing with the MI. So you do the actions, we follow up at the next audit if the actions were implemented, or we can even do it after the audit, again, it depends on the complexity of the material irregularity. And then we follow up, and then we see, does it need to be taken further, or has it actually been resolved? And then it would be in the audit report. When it comes to executive and oversight, there's nothing really to change here, as I mentioned before. It's again just to make sure that the process is monitored and supervised, and people are held accountable for the MI and for the process, because you don't want to end up with remedial actions and being referred to public bodies. So that was the next one, is where if it's referred to a public body, then the accounting officer would need to cooperate with that public body. And again, as the AGSA, we would provide any information to support that public body. We'd also have to monitor and see what any remedial actions or recommendations were made. And on the executive and oversight side, again, it's just to support and to monitor and make sure that there's no undue delays and the process flows as smoothly as possible. And then there's recommendations included in the audit report. So again, if the accounting officer said, well, there's certain actions that need to be taken and they will be taken by certain dates, then as the AG, we just follow up. And again, we would report these in our audit report. And if they're not followed up, then we can issue a remedial action. And this would mean that we would say, okay, by this date, you need to have done. So then, there's more things that the accounting officer must do. And again, from the oversight, it's just to monitor and ensure that there is progress and that it's done as smoothly as possible. The next two slides, the next slide. Again, I apologize. It is a little bit old, this information, but we wanted to just give you an idea of nationally the nature of the identified material irregularities so far, so up to the 22nd of July. So you'll see most of them are either on procurement or expenditure management, but there's also revenue management, where there's revenue that wasn't billed or there was debt that wasn't recovered. And then there's some resource management to do with assets not safeguarded, so or there's inefficiencies. I don't have the detail necessarily of all those, but it's just to give you an idea of the areas where material irregularities could actually stem from. And it's the same with the next one. The next slide. So this just talks about what this was wanting to do is just show that in 1819, which was when it started, there was 39 material irregularities, apologies, and then this is how they were being dealt with. So you'll see the majority of them were actually being dealt with by the accounting officer and the accounting authorities, and that's what the expectation is, that this would happen. And then the next little green block just shows in the next year where we were on those 39. So 25 of them, there's appropriate actions being taken. 7 were actually resolved or closed. 5, there was a lack of progress, so there's recommendations being issued. And then there was 1 that went to the public body, and that was still in progress. And there's recommendations that also were made in the audit report, and they were also still in progress. So a lot of those were extended mainly because of COVID-19. And I think with the MFMA ones, there was also some of these municipalities where MIs were raised. There was instability in either the accounting officer or accounting authority level. Probably accounting officer, wouldn't be accounting authority level. So going forward, I mean, we know that COVID-19 is still there, but things are returning more to normal. So, you know, at the moment, during our PFMA that we're busy with now, we are more on site. With the MFMA, we just have to, we'll probably do more of you know, a combination of being on site and, you know, electronic versions of things where we can. But if there are material irregularities, then we're hoping that those things won't come into play. And then the last slide, it just talks about the MIs that were identified in the Western Cape, and there was just 2 MIs. And yeah, so the notices of the MIs were issued, apologies, and they're being assessed. And actually, I sit on what we call our MI committee in the Western Cape. And what happens is that if there are suspected MIs, then it actually comes through our committee as to whether we feel that it is an MI or not. So at the moment, I can tell you that there are still MIs that we are still debating whether we believe there are MIs. So that's the process. So I hope that I have, in some way, I hope I haven't muddied the waters more. As I said in the beginning, this will not be the only conversation that we have. When we start the audit, there will definitely be more conversations. I'm not sure if there are any questions or questions of clarity that maybe myself or Faisal can respond to. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you for that. We do have the MM. He will be addressing you. MM?
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, before I ask the question directly to Melanie, I just want to emphasize to Council, the issue here is mainly about the change in the legislation to give the Auditor General more powers to issue the certificate of debt. So what it means, if the accounting officer or the case may be the mayor or the chairperson of MPED fails to address issues that have been identified in the past, and the Auditor General makes follow-ups on those matters and we fail to address them, then the Auditor General has powers to issue a certificate of debt directly against the accounting officer. So it means whether I was involved or not involved in any irregularity or anything, if I don't address it as an accounting officer, that certificate will be issued fully to the accounting officer to be liable for that. But also, I like the approach that the AG has taken, because sometimes the public misunderstand this thing, because you have to make all the determination. People talk about the contract of 18 million, for example, but it's not necessarily 18 million that needs to be looked at. It could probably be 400,000. The amounts that you paid more than what you should have paid, on the contractor, So those are the issues. The only question I'm having, Mel, is it because I just started in Bitou that you decided to choose Bitou in the next audit for this MI? I'm so worried that in the meeting with MPEG, you indicated that you are rolling this to different municipalities in a phased approach, and then you informed us that Bitou is selected for next year. Any specific reason, that you selected us?
Mr. Memani, I can assure you it wasn't because you were there or that you became the MM. The decision was taken before we knew about you being the MM. Look, there's no specific reason. We can't say, oh, well, Bitou is this or Bitou is that. Everybody's going to end up what they call the MI audits. And in actual fact, even if you're not selected for the MI audit, we still have to consider whether there are MIs. So there's still triggers that we would need to look at. So in a way, I think look at it. I mean, I know you're worried, and I know it's very stressful because there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think you just have to. I just want to say to you that it's such a long process. There will be such a lot of opportunities for the accounting officer to defend himself or herself and to bring forth additional information and to be heard orally even before we get to that certificate of debt. So, you know, if everything gets dealt with smoothly and quickly, then, you know, we should never reach that certificate of debt status. But when it comes to picking Bitou, I think it was a case of, you know, we needed to do this phased in. We do look at risk. So we do probably look at findings and things like that. I don't make the ultimate decision. I'm unfortunately one of the ones that gets told, well, now we're including that and including that. We try to bring on board, you know, we try to look at the areas as well. So we, you know, bring on board within the areas as well. So I can't say specifically there was a specific reason why Bitou was selected. It's just, you know, can't say the luck of the draw because that wasn't that, but you know, everybody's going to be included at some stage. So yeah, I don't have any other information to say why Bitou was specifically drawn in, other than, you know, everybody's going to be caught in the net eventually, if that makes sense.
Sorry. Well, I'm just wanting to have another round of questions. I'm looking at my main councillor. It's amazed that she's not asking questions today. Any other councillor want to ask Mel something? Thank you. Mel, on that, it seems as if there's no questions. So we thank you very much for the presentation, Mel.
Thank you so much.
We're looking forward to the future.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good luck that side.
Thank you. Go
Thank
well.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Councillors, that was a lot to take in. Can I suggest we take a 5-minute fresh legs? Or do you want to continue? Okay, thank you very much. That we continue then on that. We are now under finance. Our first item under finance is C/2/39/04/22. It is the outstanding debt report for February 2022, and the item is on page 174 till 186. The item is on screen. The recommendations by the Executive Mayor is also on screen. Councillor Kamkam.
Thank you, Speaker. Since the councillors last time requested introductions, can you please take us to the recommendations from the Portfolio Committee, which is obviously the same, but... Speaker and MM, the issue that you've raised previously regarding our admission dates for reports administratively not being aligned to our reporting calendar, we've also picked up in the Finance Committee. Because if you look at under point number 7 and point number 8 and point number 10 and all of these other reports, we've picked up that this report basically has not changed since, I think, last year, September. Even if you look at point number 8, where we get information on the debt collection reports, that report also ends in last year. So, besides that, when we looked under point number 8, we looked at the monthly comparative payment ratios. We also saw that the latest information that was available was for February. And then we actually wanted to know why is it that this report never gets aligned to the decisions that we take in council. Because under point number 7, where we spoke about debt collection via an attorney, because we saw that the collection rate is not improving even though we have appointed a consultant. The collection rate still remains at 1%. We also note there that we haven't had any other reports for like 6 months. So hence council then took a decision to say that let's look at alternative ways that we can increase our debt collection. Let's look at the issue under point number 7, whether we can also look at our panel of attorneys for debt collection. We haven't seen any progress on that matter. So when we discuss this, you will see under recommendations, you can take me back to the recommendations, please. We've discussed this and we discovered that the consultant has been appointed till August 2023. And when we raised this, legal services, you can see under point number 3, legal services then said that they never had the opportunity to actually review this contract, to peruse this contract, and then align whatever decisions we took in council with point number 7 and point number 8. So we've just been told that we are stuck with this consultants till August 2023, even though they are not performing. So we have actually now in our recommendations, we've requested under point number 2 that we get updated information for the past 6 months. We've also requested the payment ratio for the previous month because we did not have that. We also felt that the debt collection age analysis was also outdated. You can even see in the report, it's seriously outdated. So we requested the debt collection age analysis for those periods listed there. And we also felt under point number D that the implementation of council resolutions should be incorporated into the reports. We cannot have a situation where council take decision, but we get the same standard report every single time. We are tired of that. Under point number 3, we want council to note that legal services made known to us that they don't vet, they don't review contracts. There's a division in supply chain management that actually deals with these contracts, and we don't even know what we sign ourselves up for. Then under point number 4, we have then requested that this consulting, I struggle to, I don't know, I struggle to pronounce that name. Thank you, Councillor Kolwapi. This contract should be reviewed by legal services, and that the legal services should then submit those recommendations to us to take a decision, because we will be stuck here. We won't be able to look at appointing attorneys on our panel if we are still bound to this, or maybe we can do both, I'm not sure. And then also under point number 5, we have requested, because we've got such a big issue with historical debt and the rest of those other issues, we have requested that the prescribed debt report be submitted. That is also still outstanding. So, Municipal Manager, Speaker, through you, we are requesting that the Section 71 report should please be updated. And that when we have our meetings, can we please at least have the information from the previous month? We cannot sit with a situation we sit with September 2021 on a report that is submitted, I mean, in April or it's just not acceptable. So with that, those are the recommendations from the Finance Committee, and I see the Mayor is doing the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Amen.
Chair, I always say it doesn't matter who is the municipal manager. The point of the matter, I'm the municipal manager now. Can I request that, or advise council rather, instead of requesting an advice council, that we recommend that this item be referred to a special section 80 Committee of Finance to include the outstanding debt report for March and April, because by the time we will meet in May. So it should include the latest reports, which is March, because this report is February. We are now end of April, so it should include the report of March and April, and then it should include the matters that were raised and resolved in terms of that resolution. That this item stand over. I was requested to include this item. I must say I was expecting this, but I would rather request that we stand this item to include the March and April, as well as the matters that have actually been raised, the Speaker. Thanks.
Thank you. Just want to make sure who's still on the floor. Councillor Kolop, I see your hands, but yes?
Thank you, Speaker. I'm just curious from the report that Chairperson of Finance Committee is bringing, that the report that they are dealing with is from September up to now. They are outdated with what happened from October, November, and whatever. At some stage when we have to do a consequence management and to double check the underlying cause, questions like why, who was supposed to do, when, we need to have those questions whether we like it or not. So I'm having one of those questions: why no progress? Why no report that is updated? Whereas we know that the portfolio committees were sitting every month. Why? Who are supposed to feed that report that it's supposed to be updated? Whose responsibility it is? And the question is, with this CEO thingy, how was the contract designed? Was the person being billed a certain type of an amount, just a blanket type of an amount to be billed? Or was the person gonna be billed based on performance? If, for instance, he collects 1%, then he gets his percent from the 1% that he collected. Or how was this contract? What makes this CEO not to be performing, but it's a person that we were trying to collect as much? And I think even to AG, it's one of the things, our frustrations into finance, the billing of even residential properties for refuse removal. This whole thing, they are on red when it comes to SDP, the billing. And even the billing of people getting wrong information whilst they are billing. What's happening? Can we get more information on that? Because on SDP, it's on red, the billing. You know? So who's supposed to fix this thing? Who's supposed to feed the right information for us to get in, to make informed decisions about these things? It's frustrating me to find the portfolio committee chairperson, it's not aligned with the recent information, you know. It's still September. Why? I'm sorry, I'm not bringing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kolopi. MM, do you going to respond?
No, Chair, as I requested Council, I would appeal Council to consider my request. Councillor Kolopi, the accounting officer, is ultimately responsible. If you look at the first presentation that was done by Salga, they said there are matters that are sub-delegated. Even if as an accounting officer you've got those matters sub-delegated, you're still accountable. It does not mean that because you have sub-delegated that you cannot be held accountable. So hence I'm requesting that this information be provided in a section 80. We thoroughly discuss even the context of the report, the accuracy of the information in the report, but to have all the up-to-date information. So, and then that report, when it comes, it will then answer your questions as well, in terms of who's supposed to have done what and why it was not done.
Yes. Yes, it will be. Did you, Councillor Kolopi? It will be dealt in section 8. And then, thank you. On that, we have Councillor Botha.
So I would like to propose that we go with the recommendation with the 2 added points with regards to the March and April values, numbers as per the MM suggestion.
There's a proposal by Councillor Botha. Councillor Mangaba.
Thank
The portfolio chairperson has already covered what we really felt could needs to be actually actioned as soon as yesterday. However, I would like us to draw our attention to the fact that also that this presentation, this item also speaks to the indigent policy. And many a times we sit at council and we speak about this policy, and then we make decisions with regards to, because if I can still take you back to February when we did a review, it was shared by everyone in the space that we don't think our communities are quite aware of what this policy entails. That there's going to be a roadshow that was going to be ran to ensure that they are up to speed in terms of what this policy means to them and to the institution. And none of that is actually done. And my worry is we might look at one end in terms of why we are not collecting as we should, whereas on the other hand, there's not much education that is actually done for the people that are supposed to be contributing towards the services. And then again, in that same breath, I read, I think it's page 185, when you look at indigent household per ward. Oh, before you get to that page, page 184. It reflects there in February the applications were actually 236, and those that which were approved were actually 118. Question again would be, if we go back to resolutions that we actually took at council, it was that within 7 days of application, people are notified whether or not they are approved. Is that in action? And then again, if you look at those the applications against approvals, you get that in February we had 236 applications and 118 were approved. And we'd obviously want to know as into what's the criteria and all of that. And I would assume that we carry on as if we know. But now, if you look at Ward 6 has six approved indigents within this area, which is Ward 2. Ward 2 is actually an affluent ward, as we may know. I'm not saying they're not deserving of it. However, we would want to know the criteria at which it's used. Who is it that is actually, is this really updated as it should? Are the role players that are supposed to be involved really involved to ensure the authenticity of the paperwork that is actually done to ensure that this is done? As is, actually 6 months this month that we're coming to serving in this council, there's never been a point where I've had approvals or paperwork that is actually being brought to my attention in terms of this. Now I see the numbers, sometimes they're down, at times they're actually rising, because the last I checked we are sitting on 500. So it's all these things. We might say all we want about the contractor side, and it's valid. However, on our end again, these policies are there so that the people that are supposed to be benefiting from these are benefiting from, and that also that we are also playing our part. However, really, there's not much I can say is actually put into action as per what we discussed at council. So I'm not sure going forward what our plan is in terms of collection, if we're going to make resolutions and get back to the very same information that is not updated, and all these other intricacies that we are not actually actioning.
Thank you, Councillor Mangaba. CFO, did you take note of what the council has raised? Is there any response from you? Do you have any response to the councillor?
No, I think I'll move with what the MMF said, that the report should be updated according to when we go to the Section 80 committee.
Okay. Thank you. Just to say that also, Councillor Mangaba, there is, in terms of what you've raised with the roadshows and things, I think they are still busy in various communities with this program. Therefore, it is probably perhaps that we couldn't get what you have raised in terms of the approval within a certain period of time. So they're probably getting back, and then they gonna compile everything and then send out again to the councillors for approvals, and then be resubmitted. And from the approval from councillors, or the final approval with verifications, it then goes into the system to do what we've asked about, the 7-day perhaps capturing, and then get to know the communities, the applicants get to know whether they are approved. But on that, you had your time on the item. You are allowed to speak once. I will now give to Councillor Kapai. Councillor Kapai.
Thanks, Speaker. Speaker, this item is dear to us because it deals with the collection of rates, and also because when you collect rates, you deal with communities. And moreover, our communities are the ones that we understand that they are not taking from anywhere. Now, government provides a subsidy for an indigent household, so as to assist the municipality in getting rates or money. Now, Speaker, the road shows, I don't know whether they are a type of a competition or what, but what we want in these road shows is that these road shows must have officials that are going to have these application forms, because our people get lost when they are given these applications. They don't know what is supposed to be given, and so on. They are being sent from pillar to post, and then they yet tend to get frustrated that the municipality is not assisting. And what happens then? The municipality, especially officials, they block the poor of the poorest. Who gets into problems? It's councillors. Now, Speaker, government says, but to pile, that means people first. Let's take our officials to these communities in all these 7 wards. Officials with the whole information, so that officials can assist, because they have got tools of trade in assisting those communities. You can't say go to a library and get a form there, and you don't, because you can give somebody a form and you don't know whether this person is educated or not. You see, let officials assist our people. We are going to get out of this mess. You see, the recommendations, they are very harsh. When Councillor Kamkam speaks, she is very harsh. She has a poor community in her ward. It's her prerogative to say, officials, this roadshow must not be a talk show. It must be something that is going to be implemented so as to assist her ward, and for that matter, all the wards. So I'm appealing, Speaker, that also you are part of this. It's your program, that you must take it very serious, because really we are going to May now. We'll be dealing with budgets and so on. I can assure you, because the rates must be collected, I can assure you, you will make a hula paloo about disconnecting people, whereas you have not assisted them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just get the Councillor Sethi, then Councillor Kolopi. Councillor Mhlana, did you stand down? No. You covered. Okay.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I just want to add on what Councillor Kabai is saying now about this indigent. I think it will be very good when the finance department could assist us in terms of going to our. I understand fully that they are busy with this roadshow thing now, but when they doing this roadshow, I think the other methods that they can use when going to our people, when informing them or whatever message, they can loud hail and then send a clear message to our people in our communities, saying that when going to apply for this indigent, they must bring this document and all the documents, because it's not right when one time I was there in Simunye when they were busy. I saw the people, but they would come in, they would fill in the form, then they would turn back to say, no, Mama, go to police station. They were not aware that they must go to police station, they must bring this certificate, they must go to SASA, all those things. I think the best way of doing this thing is to send a clear message to our people or educate them first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sethi. Councillor Kolopi?
There was a concern in the society when it comes to debt collection. Before I recommend this, I also support. Oh.
Councillor Sethi.
I understand the accounting officer has to impress and say, not impress in a negative way, to be on his work. Immediately, before we started Easter, people were cut off and people rushed to the places in order they can start to do their indigent. I'm here to appeal that before we bring these harsh conditions, as Councillor Kapa was saying, when Councillor come speak, everything is about the harshness of finance matters. Before we go to that, let's firstly double check us as council and also as administrators that all our systems are well, so that people should not get an excuse in billing. If I can read you how a status was said by somebody, where he says, if forms zezaphulelo azikho, akukho ink for printing kweza offices, referring to Simunye. Home Affairs naye offline, but it's a national problem. So umntu ingathi ngesiya town straight for isaphulelo, ungayomoshi ixesha lakho eSimunye. How can we say people are wasting time when they're going to the centers, to the municipality? Before we implement these things, and we know fully people, they've got their right that they have to access from the government with the indigent policy so that they can have free thing. People have been loud crying about this. This is not an issue, Nje, because that's where our money is. We're crying about that. Our cash flow is not right. How can it be right? Whereas the rest of the people, imagine 3.5 of people that need to get the indigent policy, and is their right, and where they access it from us, the government. So we should not deny people's rights by not performing well, and we expect that we're gonna play a loud outcry here whilst we are denying, because we say if a service is delayed, justice is being denied to people. That is the system. So we must make sure, accounting officer, please, Mr. Memani, we must make sure that our places for 24 hours, let they be operational so that we can give people what it belongs to them. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Koloapi. Just to add also, I did raise what you've been coming from the councillors, where there wasn't proper planning around this, because in the first instance, when you go out, you plan all your relevant departments. You get your SASAs, because the difference with it is with the easy pay people, they don't pay through there, they go through the easy pay, so that confirmation needs to come as well as a 3-month bank statement. I did raise this with Mr. Zintlu because one of the things they did wrong was they couldn't confirm whether they will continue between the EasyPay and the SASSA application form or the approval form. Because at the time, SASSA is supposed to be where the indigent program is moving. You need to have all those ones there. So hence he sent out a communication to say that people can make a copy then at least of, because none of on their side was in place. And they admitted that and we've took it up. It's not that we didn't do anything about this. We did recognize that we did make mistakes around this. But Mr. Zintlu promised that we would rectify all of this to ensure that maximum of our people benefit through these programs. In terms of the Simunye, that will have to be taken up with the facility manager to ensure that all offices is equipped with machinery and ink, etc. But also, what they didn't know and what we've emphasized to them is that we can use our own people for oath to certify and things as commissioners, of which they didn't know. We've mentioned it to them, that we can use a law enforcement chief and a traffic officer to certify and to oath. So that's the things we can do. We have it in here. We just need proper planning around when we go. So on that, thank you. We do take note of what's been raised. I think Mr. Namtu here next to me, acting director, will then take heavily. So we have the item still on the floor from Councillor Botha.
Speaker, I think that perhaps Councillor Comcom proposed and Councillor Botha seconded. I think you've been covered.
Thank you. Proposed by Councillor Comcom, and then what they recommend, what the MMS raised through Councillor Botha. Thank you. We move on. Next item is an addendum. It is the status of Municipal Section 52 report for the quarter ending 31st March 2022. It is, the item is C2/40/0422. The item is on screen. Item serving. MM?
Can I just apologize? This is how it is done. So it appears Finance does their report on Section 52. Performance Management does their report, and I don't understand still CFO why. I did engage with the relevant bodies. This is the same item that we've just dealt with that comes from the Executive Mayor. The quarterly report, Section 52D report, it's supposed to be financial and non-financial information. It must speak about the performance financially and speaks about the non-financial performance information, to say if you said you're going to tar 80 kilometers of roads, how many kilometers have you tarred? So, Speaker, this is why I say I don't want addendums. And I hope directors are taking note that I don't want addendums. When I'm called about addendums, I look at the matters and discuss it with the committee services, and I sometimes ask myself, did the person asking for this thing to be in the addendum really apply his mind? And I've intentionally left this thing, that it must come, and I said to the committee services, let it come, and I'm going to raise it in council meeting. But I'm not making an excuse. This is the same item that we have dealt with, but it's been done like that in the past year. 2 reports from finance and 1 report from performance management. It's not supposed to be 2 reports. It's supposed to be 1 report that speaks to one issue of that. So we can note this report, Chair, if council do not mind. But we will submit the next report of the 4th quarter as 1 report for both financial and financial. That's what the legislation requires from us. Otherwise, we're creating unnecessary fatigue for councillors to be reading duplicate reports.
Thank you, MM. Councillor Botha.
Thank you, Speaker. So I've got quite a few queries relating to the budget and performance report, the capital expenditure report, and the functional expenditure report. I'm going to list them, and then if I can just have some feedback on them. The first point is on page 6, the consolidated performance. That is for quarter 2 and it's not for quarter 3. So if that can please be corrected and paid attention to. Then in this report, it refers to, obviously there's been an increase in the fines and penalties that was received and that we've gone above budget for that. And it mentions that there's a detailed traffic safety report attached, but there hasn't been anyone attached. So if there is a report, if we can please receive it. Then on page 12, we're looking at the debtors analysis where we're now going to 121 to 150 days where we're getting the bulk of our outstanding there, but there's nothing further than that, and that's it's an impractical possibility for me. There must be further debt. We really have to categorize our debt in terms of when was it due, when was it payable, so that we can honestly look to see what is prescribed, when is it prescribed, because otherwise we're flogging a dead horse. We're chasing after money that we cannot honestly expect people to pay because it's prescribed. Then on the creditor's age analysis, there's one, I think that's out in 60 days. It's a sum of 25,000 Rand. It just refers to it as saying that work is not performed. If we could just have more detail on that. Then on page 38, it refers to the Harkerville Community Hall where 330,000 Rand has been spent on it. But now if you look at the SBDRP and you compare it to reference number TL33, where it says non-applicable, nothing's been done in it. So those two aren't talking to each other. And so we've spent money on it, but we haven't done anything on it. So that's raising questions. Then on the capital expenditure report, I note that there was a gazebo and a shredder. There's a notation saying UNAUF, which I assume means unauthorized, because it's also then it's credited, then it's debited, then it's credited. If we can please just have some more info on that. And then on the functional expenditure, I see on page 52 that we have spent to year to date 1.278 million, so 1.2 mil more or less, on the cemeteries. And I would just like to know, in terms of what cemeteries, because I think we're all in agreement that there's been no maintenance of the cemeteries for a very long time now. And I would just like to know, where has that money gone to what? That's a list of my queries that I would like some answers to. I can go through them again or point by point if anyone wasn't taking notes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Botha. Councillor Kapai, before the CFO can respond.
Speaker, just seconds. I'm very scared in raising the issue of cemeteries as if I want to die. Really, it is a matter that we need to look at it. You see, if all the time I'm talking about the issue of cemeteries, it will mean as if I've prepared myself to die. And I don't want to die now.
Thank you. Yes, it's something we all need to talk about, and we will be very strongly about it, because this is a very serious point on this. CFO, based on what the Councillor Botha has raised, do you have any response on the points raised?
Thanks, Speaker. Can we write a written response, Speaker, for the next council meeting on all the issues that Councillor Botha has raised, so that we don't miss out in any of those things?
Do you have all the points?
No, I don't have all the points now. Since I'm saying, can we submit to the next council meeting a written response?
Are you happy with the response, Councillor Botha?
That'll be fine.
Thank you. The item is still on the floor.
Looking at the budget and whatever, and we've got something that says aged care. Why are we not budgeting for aged care for older people, even if we support those that are already in the ground? Why are we not budgeting for them?
Councillor Koloapi, that's a question, and in terms of the item, that can be directed to the administration. We are dealing to conclude on a resolution on the item. That's a question. So that will be directed through the administration based on what you've raised. But the item is still on the floor. Councillor Mangaba.
Thank you, Speaker. I think it goes back on what the MM has alluded to, that we need to change gears. We need to get to a level where there's a thought process behind our reports, and they're not done for the sake of being done. However, there's quality attached to them. It will actually save us time, because now most times we sit here reading the same reports, just different dates. I understand that it's been a norm in the past that you bring it to council, if the councillors don't read, we'll just sign whatever. Let's change gears. Let's change gears and ensure that if a report needs to somehow be a conglomerate that actually makes sense to everyone who actually reads it, we are able to do that and move forward. And again, I am hoping with the commitment that is actually made by the CEO at the back, that CFO, excuse me, at the back, that Councillor, if I may ask you, kindly forward all those questions to him so that when we sit here again, we know exactly what we're dealing with. Because I think we've said many a times with spaces where if for progress sake would say would get back to something and we never get back to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kamkam.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm partly covered by Councillor Mangaba. Councillor Mangaba, I will make sure next time that I read more often. Speaker, through you, the issue that was raised by you to actually combine the reporting is very important, because we must also realize that when it comes to the SDBIP and it comes to our targets and our budgets, all these things are integrated. Because if you can see there's no progress on a matter, you can actually deviate that money to somewhere else. Then we don't sit with the issue in our fourth quarter that we don't reach our targets. So it would be much appreciated if the issue of the reporting can actually be sorted out, I'm sure, it will actually help us with a lot of our issues. But with all the issues raised and then Councillor Botha submitting all those issues in writing, and hopefully we will then get the submissions in the next meeting, I would like to then propose that we don't have to add most recommendations, we're just going to take note. It will happen, Mosne.
Yes.
I will then second.
Just a moment. Councillor Tabai.
Seconded, Speaker. Speaker, I don't know whether we are sitting with the correct Jessica Kamkam here. There is another Jessica Kamkam. We need to investigate that.
Do an inaugural. Thanks for that. It's been proposed and seconded. Moving on to the next item. Item C, stroke 2, stroke 41, stroke 04, stroke 22. Cost containment report for the quarter ending 31st March 2022. It's an addendum in page 127 till page 130. The item is serving. Councillor Botha.
I just want to clarify if there is not supposed to be any detail coming through from 2022 yet, because it only goes up to 2021. So I just want to find out if this is a system, or are we looking at the same? Are we looking at the same issues? Because the year in the first column, the financial year, only refers to 2021, or is that actually supposed to be 2021, 2022? Or I just want to get clarity on that, please.
Yes, is it there on screen?
It's that first column on the left where it says financial year. Is that financial year 2021, 2022, or are we specifically saying that it arose in 2021, so therefore is there anything from 2022 onwards? That's my query.
CFO,
It's 2021, 2022, Speaker. Started last year.
It through to you. It's something that, especially under finance, it's now again something that should have been on screen clearly for all councillors to see. Now councillors is asking things that was supposed to be through the administration being identified correctly, because we are very on this thing of relaying correct information to avoid any unnecessary questions, especially from the public as well. But when we go out with these kind of things, it is a bit concern. So I would like to plead with all the administration staff to the that we please do things properly. It's the third time now under finance we're struggling. Thank you. The item is still on. Councillor Botha, you have been answered. The item is still open.
I'm happy, thank you. I can therefore propose it.
The item is still open. No. The first one was you were. Councillor Kamkam?
I will second the proposal, Speaker.
It was then proposed by Councillor Botha, seconded by Councillor Kamkam. The next item, it's the environment report for the quarter ending 31st March 2022. It is item C, stroke 2, stroke 42, stroke 04, stroke 22. You would find it in the addendum under page 131 to page 132. Councillor Tsabai?
I propose to go with the recommendations.
There's a proposal by Councillor Tsabai that we go with the recommendations. Councillor Sethi?
I second.
No, that's Councillor Sethi seconded. Councillor Botha, your hand?
Sorry, I'd just like to query the environment
No, sorry.
And
Councillor, I thought you were gonna. The item is closed by Councillor Sethi. We are unable to open it. We're gonna continue with the next item. It is the list of withdrawals from the municipal bank account for the quarter ended 31st March 2022, stroke C, stroke 2, stroke 43, stroke 04, stroke 22. You would find an addendum on page 133 to page 138. An addendum. The item is serving. Councillor Tsabai?
We go with the recommendations.
There's a proposal by Councillor Tsabai that we go with the recommendations. There's a proposal on the floor. Councillor Mangaba?
Seconded, Speaker. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Mangaba. Next item, it is the report on unauthorized expenditure for the quarter ending 31st March 2022. Item C, stroke 2, stroke 44, stroke 04, stroke 22. Addendum 139 to page 142. The item is now serving. Just Councillor Tsabai?
We take note of the reports.
That we take note from Councillor Tsabai. CFO, I see your hand is up.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor. I want to apologize again. There's an error on the date of payment. I wanted to withdraw the report, on the issue, because the date of payment should be reflecting the correct date, the date that not on the actual report, on the actual attachment. That's what I was going to correct.
The item on the list of withdrawals from the municipal bank account.
No, on this one, on the report unauthorized.
In the unauthorized thing.
Sorry, the report on unauthorized expenditure for the quarter ending 31st March. On what page is the error, CFO? It's becoming a problem.
No, on the actual attachment, Speaker. Yeah, here. says 2024-521 instead of because let me call the amount above.
Thank you. Councillor Kabai is still on the proposed that we take note. The item is still open. Councillor Sethi?
Seconded. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Sethi. We're done with finance. We're moving on to corporate service. The first item under corporate service is C/3/32/04/22. The customer care section, motivation to change the customer care section's working hours. It is on page 188 till page 195. The item is serving. Councillor Kabai.
Speaker, this item, the changing of working hours, further to that, it says we revert back when it's December season. And yet we forget about, I will call our communities that some of them were born and bred here, who are staying in Bitou, patrons. Now we are being unfair to patrons of this community, that this department or this section, immediately after 11 o'clock, there is no phone call recorded about the burst of a sewage pipe. Then therefore those communities must sleep until the morning and start making calls after 7:30. Whereas everybody has waken up, there's spillage all over. What I will remind you that these officials, workers who were in that section that are going to be removed now, were logging in calls. Immediately in the morning, those calls are recorded, and sections that are supposed to go and fix the problems goes there within a short space of time. So we are making our communities to panic more and more, and make us to be useless, as they are saying. That, look, I don't know what we are dealing with, Bitou Municipality, because there is no effectiveness there. Now you are saying to them, they must have grounds to say, really, we are not active. Speaker, you will find out this section is for service delivery. Either the burst of a pipe, either water services, electricity, you see? Because the last items and recommendations in council were saying, in terms of electricity, where it is of magnitude, where the whole area, the substation bursts, then therefore it is an emergency. Whoever that was on standby, all of them will be there. But council said immediately after 10 o'clock, in terms of overtime, because overtime is being abused, we're trying to put controls. Now we are shutting down all of that now, that communities will wait until the morning so as to be served. I think that Speaker is not right. And again, in cost containment, we are being hypocritical. You are talking about cost containment, and immediately in the office of the executive mayor, you want somebody who's going to be a communications a person, a politically so. Where is cost containment? You want now, because there is communication in the municipality, and if you are very serious about cost containment, you are shutting down a section of service delivery. But on the other side, you are not talking about cost containment. You want somebody who's going to be in the executive mayor as a communications person. No, it can't be right. We are being hypocritical.
Amen. Do you want to respond?
Speaker, I am very worried, but at the same time looking forward to what I see will be a very difficult time for us administratively. Now, let me just quickly explain, because I just started. This item was presented, we discussed it at the director's level. And in my understanding, that this item did previously serve in previous council meeting and is coming back now to amend the hours. Now, listening to Councillor Kabai now, and perhaps I would not blame him, and it's a reflection on us. That is why I'm saying it looks like it's going to be difficult, I must say, to the directors, but we are up for that challenge. Now, when this item is brought to Council, Councillor Kabai, it's supposed to reflect previously how many calls are coming in from 6 o'clock until 6 in the morning. See, it will not bring you to a situation now that you feel this is only about cost containment measures. And this is what I've actually asked Jessica somewhere in the item, and I was then informed that the people from that time, there's very few calls that are coming. So the item brought in by the director, we've discussed it, is to say we're not shutting down people to come and phone anytime. That warm body resource during that time must be utilized to go and work at the Central Command Communication Center. I asked this question in the director's meeting, and I can see Franklin is nodding. Do we have a dedicated line there? Because you don't want to disturb the emergency line for ambulance and fires and everything. I was informed there is a dedicated line. So it's not to take the services out totally, Councillor Gabai, but it's to actually say during that time period at 11, it's very quiet, there's very few and sometimes no calls. So what is the point of keeping a resource that must sit there if you know the statistics? So what I'm trying to raise, I'm saying that I'm very worried, is the fact that, you know, when councillors have to make a decision, administratively we must empower the councillors to be able to make an informed decision. So the item I did allow it to come because I got to understand that you were informed about the previous resolution, about the processes, about how many hours, how many calls that are coming in. If you're saying to me now that statistics was never presented in front of you, then there's no urgency about this item because it's effectively from 1st of July and going forward, but we can bring this item back to actually give that sense. Then it will give you a comfort, Councillor Kapai, to say we're not totally shutting down services. My understanding was that the item is brought in to say don't sit with the warm body resource if that warm body resource during that time period up until in the morning does not have calls that are coming in. If there are few calls that are coming in, those calls can be diverted to the central command. So the central command will still record the calls. The person that is on standby at electrical and water will still respond because there is always a person that is on standby. it's not really shutting service delivery down. So if council is saying that that proper information was never provided previously in the discussion, because I was alerted that you did discuss this item before, then I would request that the item stand over, Speaker. But if you have all that information previously, you had all of that. In essence, all that the item is saying that rather have the calls at 11 o'clock diverted to the main call center. There is a dedicated line. We still record the calls and everything there. That is going to happen, and the calls are then transferred to the user department in terms of the person that is on standby. That's what this item is trying to achieve. But if you're saying, it did not give that correct statistics for you to make an informed decision, I would understand. I would then say the item should stand over.
Thanks. Thank you, MM. On that, we will give to Councillor Mangaba and then Councillor Olafir.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, MM, for touching base on my worries as well, because what you're raising now is actually what I was actually probing as I was reading through my notes. Because for starters, for me, questions that are actually popping up as I'm actually reading this the report is that I find contradictory points about the report, because part of it says it's cost containment, which would then bring a question: do we prioritize containment over quality services? An answer that would dictate whether or not we are actually headed the right direction. And another thing I want to understand is, when applying these changes, are we trying to apply them because we are understaffed, or we are underutilizing the staff we have? Because not so long ago, we sat here at council, just to bring you up to speed, and I had complaints from the community that when they log calls around 9:30, they are told their emergencies will only be attended the following day. And a decision was made in this council that no, with regards to such essential services, they are operating around the clock. So for me to actually read notes that are saying no, calls are actually logged at 11 for them to be attended the next morning is actually a different communication to what we had shared right in this place a month ago with regards to essential services. And then again, what I'm seeing here, if you look at the number of calls in the space of 3 months and per month, in office hours, after hours, and weekends, I don't see it justifiable that we don't need the service between 11 and the following morning. So I would urge that we do not push cost containment right above quality basic service delivery.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Olafir.
Thank you, Speaker. I have the advantage of being in this portfolio, and it was discussed. We are not taking away any service. The CCC Centre will then be covering the hours that are not covered by customer care when people log a call. And now you can understand why I was not speaking today, because I don't know, I've got a bad cold. So I want to go with this recommendation because I understand what it means. We have to act, we have to work in such a way that we get our money's worth out of everything that we do in this municipality for what it's worth. Whether it's adding an extra service doesn't mean we're giving a better service. We've got to bring everything together and see how effective we can be with what we have. And in this situation, having a whole system going for a few calls coming up, and yet we have something else that can cover that, I am happy with this recommendation. It was discussed. We can see the calls are dropped, and CCC will be picking up those calls for us when it comes in on an emergency or an urgency at a certain time. Thank you.
There's a proposal by Councillor Olafir. just in order. Councillor Kamkam.
Thank you, Speaker. I do think I agree with Councillor Olivier. If you look at the recommendations, it's very clear. It does say under point number 2 that the calls will be reverted to the Central Communication Center. Also, if you look further in the report, Speaker, it does mention that on some instances, the average of calls that we receive is only 2 calls after 11 o'clock. And the manager of communications did, in the portfolio meeting, take us through this report and explain to us that it's not viable, financially viable for us to then have, like you have said, a warm body there, while we've got an alternative measure in place that we can actually use. So to I would then also say that, obviously the concerns from the councillors, it's valid concerns, because we might sit with situations where in the evening something might happen, and normally with communities, you are the first point of contact. The blame and the problem will normally come to the councillors. So can we just make sure that we've got all the arrangements administratively, that we've got the necessary means and arrangements in place to actually deal with matters if we might sit with an emergency after working hours. But from the understanding that I got, and the manager is here, that was the impression we were given in the committee, and that's why I will also support the recommendation from Councillor Olivier.
Amen.
Speaker, that is why I was saying, the item would have come through a discussion in the previous council or in the previous section 80, and I'm happy this part is highlighted, because I remember the director mentioned, the director, as we all know, the mom-in-law passed away, Mr. Namdi is acting. So what council has to consider, and council can perhaps discuss the matter as it was discussed in section 80. Do we keep 2 clerical people to be sitting there when we know that the calls on average is 2 calls on average at a salary of 12 to 13 to 14,000 a month? Is that really a decision that council is considering? That's why I'm saying the issue should not be looked at in terms of cost containment measures only. It must be looked at in terms of, are we impacting, as the councillor said, on service delivery? And my understanding when the item was brought, and it is brought here by the department, is that service delivery would not be impacted. Those 2 average calls that are coming in will be diverted to the central command center to still take that, So that is why I'm saying, perhaps at a later stage, acting director, we should look at, That is why I'm saying the initial item, when it came to council about this, did it really analyze a need for a 24-hour service for that unit? And where I'm sitting as a new person, it does not appear that initial item that came to council that did that analysis and cost benefit analysis, because it's supposed to be that first item that told you as council before you make a decision how many calls are happening. The acting director technical services is here. She can tell us pipe burst is normally during which period of time. She can be able to guide us and tell us. You would know that time that is normally your peak time, or when everyone has come back from the office, or in the morning, So why do we want to have a center operating after 11 if we know we don't have many pipe bursts during that time? We have pipe bursts only at 7:30 and up until 11, and then again at 4 up until 8 when everyone is at home. So what I'm asking is that council on their side should take a decision that is informed, I would appeal then that based on the information that we are provided here, and if councillors have discussed it, we can always, this is an item that we can always revert back and change because it depends on the number of calls. What we have discussed, we said during the season, because the influx of people is more in town, it's where you actually get more of these incidents reported from both pipe-based and other electrical issues. So, Speaker, I'll stop there. That the item does not really impact on taking people from service delivery. And this is part of the issue that we're also going to discuss when we discuss the structure.
Thanks. Thank you, The item was just a matter for clarification. To all, there was a proposer and a seconder. We will then move on. Thank you for the clarity, Next item is Section 4, Community Service. It is the Integrated Human Settlements Progress Report for period ending March 2022, and the item is C/4/10/04/22. You would find the item on page 197 to page 209. Item now serving. Councillor Nel.
Speaker, I propose that we take note of the report.
There's a proposal by Councillor Nel that we take note. Councillor Mhlana.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Mhlana. Next item, it is under Engineering Service, Section 5. It is the Extended Public Works Program, the progress report for period ending March 2022, C/0/5/20/04/22. The item is on page 211 to page 224. The item is now serving. Councillor Tkabai.
Can you speak? I go with the recommendation.
There's a proposal that we go with the recommendation by Councillor Tkabai. Councillor Mhlana.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Mhlana. Then we move on to the Section 6, Economic Development and Planning. ERF 11782, Plettenberg Bay, proposed lease, Sweets Heavens Daycare. It's an addendum. The item C/6/24/04/22. On the addendum, it is page 139 to page 142. Councillors, is it because this is in Kolweni or the item is now serving? But can we also, please, this is Kolweni. Why are you acting as if you are celebrating a victory? Let us behave, councillors. Thank you. While the item was reading, you were celebrating.
They're fighting to propose and second, Speaker.
The item is serving. Councillor Mangaba.
Thank you, Speaker. I just love how jubilant everyone is with regards to this item. It clearly speaks to the fact that we are all working towards ensuring that we are leaving this place in a better state than when we found it, and that we are actually securing a future for our kids. Because that building there has been demolished, vandalized, and would actually fix it, and it will be vandalized again. And to find that in that area there's actually no crash to actually ensure that there's actually elementary upbuilding of the kids before they actually get into primary. So it brings me great pleasure to say this in this record in front of everyone at 12:51 that I am for the recommendations.
There's a proposal by Councillor Mangaba. Deputy Mayor?
I second it, Speaker.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. With that then, it concludes the... Councillor Kolwapia will have security to remove you. It's the last time. Security will remove you next time for talking while I'm on the floor. Thank you. On that note, we are done with the portfolio of index. We will move back to our order of business. Under point 11 in the order of business, we have urgent matters submitted by the municipal manager, of which we have none. We move to point 12, consideration of notices of motions. We have none. Point 13, considerations of notice of questions. We have none. Consideration of motions of exigency. We have none. With that, we have now reached our points on order of business. We will then go to in committee. Thank you very much for those present. Mr. Flock, thank you for always being here. We will now move to in committee. Councillor Ndai?
Sorry, man, before we move to the in committee, I've got a concern, my speaker, but I want to raise something. We normally, sorry to go back, by the way. I would love maybe we take note what Councillor Botha was raising through to the CFO, because the item was there, and then he says to us he will come with a report what Councillor Botha was raising. Then I don't know when are we going to have a council meeting. After 31 days, he will come back with the answers to us, or we're going to take, or maybe we're going to have a special meeting, because this is not the first time that we are dealing with this thing, because the management and the directors, they will write an items to us, speaker, and then therefore they won't have answers for us immediately. Please, we need to take note of that. If the item is there, they have to respond it immediately to us. Thank you, speaker.
We take note, thank you. We will have a, do you need 10 minutes break? Yes. Do you also want to raise a take note, but we're going to go into in committee now.
Protect me from yourself, speaker.
How many, just a moment.
Okay.
We're going to, Jessica, how many, are you prepared or?
5 minutes already.
Okay, we will allow a 5 minute after.
Thank you, Speaker. Just because this day I'm full of grace, just to assist my colleague over there, it is on record that Ms. Botha, Councillor Botha, is forwarding the questions directly to the CFO, so that on our next council meeting, he actually brings us a detailed report with regards to that.
I did heard that, Councillor Mangaba.
Thank you.
If you heard me what I say.
We will not open a debate, councillors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't
We
need
will
that. Because
have
the
a 5 minute
CFO
break.
can't
Thank
come
you.
back to us each and every time. We'll come back while the item is there.